Hey everybody, Tim here with today's episode of Star Trek Voyager, Season 7, Episode 13, Repentance. So this episode, it all boils down to this is the capital punishment episode. A ship is about to explode, Janeway saves everybody on board, and it ends up being like a prison cargo ship with like 8 men that were sentenced to death are on their way to be executed. And that's it. This whole episode is basically just kind of that back and forth on should these prisoners be executed? Should they just get life sentences? Should they get rehabilitation? And most of this episode is actually more for the viewer to kind of project and decide what they think is right rather than an actual storyline. At least to me, that's what this episode is more about. There are some twists and turns, Neelix of course makes friends with everybody. And the one that he makes friends with asks him to send a letter, and when Neelix does, they trace it back, find Voyager and try to save the prisoners, which of course doesn't work. The bulk of this episode is actually that one of the characters who's the baddest of the bad ends up just getting the shit beat out of him by the guards. And then when they take him to the doctor tries to save his life. And Seven even brings up the point, why are you going to save the life of this guy who's about to go be killed? It doesn't make sense. And the doctor's basically shut up and help me. And so they save his life using her nanoprobes, because of course Borg technology saves everything. And so when they do fix his brain, he ends up getting really sick. And he's like, what's happening? And they're like, you're feeling guilt. And I was like, I don't think that works that way. But it actually kind of reminded me of the Simpsons episode where Bart does something bad and he's like, I feel really weird. And Lisa's like, that's guilt. And then the camera moves and it's just a spider biting him. I don't know. That's kind of what it reminded me of. So anyways, this episode is mostly about this guy feeling guilt and basically refinding his humanity or whatever species he is. And they try to ask the people, the family of the man he killed are the only ones that can forgive him so he won't be killed or executed. So Tuvok helps him write a letter, the warden helps him write a letter, but they just keep denying it over and over and over again because they want him killed. They want justice. So of course, by the time we get to the end of the episode, he is executed. But it's just kind of interesting to watch the different characters' reactions. The fact that the doctor is completely against it, which makes sense because he's a doctor, the Hippocratic Oath and all that. And of course, Seven is yeah, a life sentence is just a waste of resources. And sure, we can rehabilitate him to become a good person, which is something his victims will never get the chance to be. So, it's kind of interesting to watch all of the different, arguments going back and forth through the episode. Overall, I did think it was a good episode. I thought it was interesting beginning to end. But it is a very kind of preachy episode on top of that. So for those who have seen this one, what did you guys think about the debate back and forth? Go ahead, let me know, and I will see you guys next time for Prophecy.